Rick Horrow joins Rock and Manooch on Fox Sports 910.
You're hot. Hello, Rick. How are you today?
How are we doing, Rick Horrow?
Wow, that was a very quick introduction. I haven't talked to you in like a month. Where have you been? What's wrong with you guys?
Well, that's why. I mean, I felt like I almost said Happy New Year. I mean,
Happy New Year. That might have worked. I'm not sure. We probably did talk after the New Year. I missed you when I was in Toronto for the All-Star game. I missed you when I was in Boston for the Bean Pod tournament, and I did my monthly attaboy to the Harvard kids, and then my 7 days in Vegas is like dog years. You know, every day in Vegas is like it takes 5-6 days out of your life. So I'm really kind of glad you went. You have to go. It's like a trade show, and if you're anybody in the industry, you got to go just to be there. But I'm really kind of glad I'm home and you know, doing stuff like sitting around and playing golf and feeding the dog and watching Griselda. That's a great movie. I watched that last night. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but
no.
Sofia Vergara is a drug queen that even Escobar is afraid of, and she shoots people and she kills them, and it's kind of fun to see her in that role. It's a little bit different than Modern Family, I'll tell you that.
Well, it sounds like you've been around a lot of hockey people. Are you hearing any news regarding the Yotes here in Arizona? Because it's getting ugly. It's getting real ugly. Yeah.
Well, the news is like Groundhog Day news, which is, you know, you need a new arena or you're gone. But I will say that there are two sides of this. Every time you hear a new quote unquote candidate of the month, last year was Houston, this year is Salt Lake. You know, then it's like, all right, you better get this done or else. And then Winnipeg is having some troubles. And then people remember that, you know, it used to be Atlanta. And, you know, it's all, then the good news, I guess, is that Gary Bettman is as incredibly loyal as they come. Now, he's got to reach a breaking point soon because you only have, you know, you have so many, you know, only so many last chances. And I saw, it's interesting, I was sitting out there in Toronto and I was sitting next to Steve Ellman, you know, at the All-Star game. And it was like, you know, same old, same old. I remember all the Coyote stories from his perspective 10, 15 years ago, good or bad. But it's like, you know, it's you hear some of the same stuff.
Well, it seems though, Rick, is mid-June is when you're going to have Morello going to cut that check for the state land trust, which I believe it's leasehold. But all that being said, if he gets the winning bid with the state trust land, cuts the check, which they want, let's say it's finalized, it's recorded, it's by, I don't know, September, October. They only got 3 more years left on the current lease at the Mullet. So from start to finish, say they start in October, from putting a shovel in the ground, can they get this bad boy done in 2.5, 3 years with all of the stuff he wants to do as far as a major complex?
Well, it would be really tough. And of course, you don't do the full, as you know, you don't do the full parts of the major complex all at the same time. You get the magnet done and then you build around it. And, you know, Phoenix and the Valley, if it's like it used to be when, you know, you got the team moved from another city, you know, you don't need that second goal, right? You only need sight lines for like one goal. So you only need to do half the arena. No, that's stupid. I'm just kidding. That's a very stupid comment. So it may take, it will be close, clearly. But here's my comment. I would be so amazed, as would the Valley, to get a real arena out of the ground, that if for some reason they're late by a couple of months, you know, people will bend over backwards to accommodate them wherever it is. And I don't just mean Mullet, I mean anywhere in the Valley. It's just, I don't think whether it'll be done in 2 years or 3 years is the issue. If it really is financed and the land is really there, everybody's going to say hallelujah.
Rick, I want to get your thoughts in reference to Rick Horrow joining us here on the right to get us on the college football playoff. It's set with the 12 teams. They got that. And then it wasn't a day after that came out, the new model, that the SEC and Big Ten said they wanted guaranteed 4 spots. Okay, that was out there. And then it seemed like the next day, Bill Hancock's already talking about a 14-team playoff in 2026. So I talk about the tail wagging the dog here. It just seems coincidental that to appease the Big Ten and the SEC, that we expanded 2 years later because of what they said versus Here's the model, and you'll be happy with it.
Well, you know, if you're saying that the SEC and the Big Ten have more leverage than anybody else, well, that's pretty obvious.
Sure.
So the question is, what do you do with that leverage? Well, you know, now I think it's the right answer of having the 5 champions guaranteed, then the next 7. But who really got kind of messed up in all this was the Conference USA and some of the other conferences. They thought they would have a guaranteed spot, or at least a presumptive spot, if it's number 12, whatever. But to have a non-power 5 in there, and that didn't happen. And so we're seeming to be inching toward haves and the have-nots on steroids, whether it's the 5-7, you know, as you said, whether it's the SEC, Big Ten versus the world. I will say this, a shameless plug, as I always do. So on March 8th, the Maxwell Football Club is doing its awards dinners in Atlanta, College Football Hall of Fame. So I took the opportunity to joint venture with my friend Steve Hatchell at the National Football Foundation. We're going to do a series of thought leadership panels on the future of college football. We have the NCAA there. We have a couple ADs. We have a conference commissioner. We have a couple of players. We have some sponsors. And we're going to do a whole afternoon of, you know, very serious thinking. Can't solve all the problems, but at least you can talk about it leading into the awards dinner that night. We picked that night because everybody's going to be there. And, you know, at the Hall of Fame is kind of a cool place to talk about this stuff, especially since it is the 10-year anniversary of that building, A, and then B, remember where next year's national championship is. It's in Atlanta, so you kind of kick off the celebrations there.
Well, ask me this. You got a $7.87 billion contract the ESPN is going to cover till 2031. Are they getting out in front? Is this a precursor to these super conferences, which could be or might be around the corner? And I'm curious to see if you guys might discuss that as well, too. That seems like they're out in front of it, that's inevitable, and it's going to happen, I don't know, maybe within 5-6 years when this contract is at its forefront up in 2031.
Yeah, and the other piece of this that you know I published in my stuff, don't automatically assume that number is the number that's going to happen. I understand that it's out there and it's published, not finalized yet, and everybody says, wow, it's double of what it used to be at the ESPN level, so it's got to be big. But let's remember, the last contract had 3 important games every year, semis and final. Now the playoff has 11. So that may not be enough money, and it's open for further negotiations. You know, what happens if you go to 14 as Hancock trolls out there? Of course you're going to need more money for that. And then
3.
How about streaming partners? How about the Amazons? How about the Googles? We didn't see that. ESPN came in and ratcheted it up with their big new vertically integrated streaming monstrosity. So we have more questions than answers. Usually with you guys, it's better because you always want to leave more questions than answers because, you know, we don't have any answers that are worth a damn anyway.
Rick Horrow here on Rock Manuch and Jimmy B. I see that golf and trading cards are coming together with LIV. They signed a new partnership with Panini, and I'm just curious, is this going to work?
Well, it's going to work as much as digital trading cards in any other sport, baseball, basketball. If you're avid and you want to collect, you know, why wouldn't you send your kid out there to find a Phil Mickelson card or a John Rahm card? By the way, I will tell you, when I was in Vegas, I decided to do a little research. So I went to the LIV tournament twice. Remember, it was there in Vegas. And I'll tell you, it is, I'm going to suggest that the tour, not that they need my advice, ought to take it seriously because it ain't going away. You know, I think the way to solve all these issues will be an inevitable merger. You know, you're not going to wait for LIV to run out of money because that ain't happening. And in the meantime, they've got a very interesting product. I mean, they got to kill the music while the golfers are playing because that it flies against the face of everything we've done. And you know, put a prohibition on black socks when you're playing. Oh, that's just me. But other than that,
yes,
you know, I mean, there's right. I mean, but there's a lot of positivity there with LIV, and I know we're just coming off of Waste Management, but you know, keep your eye on it.
Yeah, and it sounds like some players are starting to kind of adhere to it too, and they're being like Rory and Tiger. It sounds as though they're coming around to accepting the fact that this is going to happen. They are going to merge.
Yeah, well, and they're not the ones who totally decide. It's a very interesting dynamic now that you have a lot of Middle Eastern money, plus you've got that investment group that is coming together with a series of pro sports owners. So the PGA Tour, it has to make some really important decisions in the next few months, short of Jay Monahan just hugging the guy in the middle of nowhere, saying we'll work out the details later.
So next trip on the schedule after you get in all that golf and time with Duke?
Yeah, well, I've got a charity event over at Concession over in Tampa, but then that March 8th that weekend is kind of a very significant one in Atlanta for the Hall of Fame, and it's all of a sudden Masters time coming up, right? And then you've got before you know it, you got British Open time, and then before you know it, you got a number of other international things. I'm going to slip in a New Zealand trip there that no one knows about yet, but I guess a few people now know. So it'll be an interesting 2024.
He's so nonchalant. Yeah, and I got this Masters thing I got to go to. I mean, hey, Rick, somebody's got to do it. We are sure glad it's you.
Live vicariously through you. It's great.
Yeah, well, and we can talk down the road because I know that there have been a lot of things that have been happening in Phoenix, and certainly on the
you and I need to specifically catch up. Yes, there's been some changes
in the rock stable. That would be very, very important. So I covet the day when you decide to return my phone calls. That would be
that's BS. you that is not true. That is not true.
Hey, Rick,
have a good weekend, Rick.
You're not the other one, Rick.
Bye.
Bye.
That's Rick Horrow, the sports professor, joining us here. You'll follow him on Twitter, X at Rick Horrow. Again, he is all over the board. Coming up, a very slight